Well, thank you, and good morning. Is it still morning? I think it is, isn't it? Welcome. Iris Payroll Professional. I'm still kind of getting used to that name, actually, and for those of you who were curious, it's actually Star Payroll Professional. So the elephant is out, but yeah, that's where we are. We are now renamed to Iris Payroll Professional, and really very happy to be part of the Iris family, and some great things that we're now able to do. So hopefully that bit's out. I'm Director of Operations for Iris Payroll Professional now, so I look after the roadmap. And what we're doing in that product set is really quite exciting. So my job today is to let you know what's happening. And I'm also going to try and overlap with a little bit of what we're doing in other areas of payroll products, because with Iris, we've got a lot of payroll product, and there's some good things happening across the board. So let's get started. I think we're all familiar with this popular phrase, a call to action, if you like. I don't know if you realise, but it's been around since the 1930s when a chap called Alan F. Mogensen, he was the founder of something called work simplification. He coined that phrase back then. I've been around a while. I can't actually profess to having seen it there, but it sticks with all of us. There is a problem with it, though, I think, and that problem is that it tends to imply that if you work smarter, you're not going to have to work as hard. The two things feel as if they're mutually exclusive, and I think we all know the uncomfortable truth. It doesn't matter how smart or how efficient we work, we're never going to have to work any less hard. But I think for all of us, in whatever business, whatever sector we're in, we're all challenged with higher, better, faster, and everybody is looking for the keys to unlock that elusive, smarter working. So how do you find the keys? Well, I came across this quote, actually, while I was preparing for this. And in fact, I think it's quite helpful when you're pondering that smarter work conundrum. And Sophie here, I think, gave a little bit of hope to us all, because the very fact that you're here today, you're interested, you're curious in trying to improve the way you work, means that you're on your way towards being a smarter worker. I think probably you're going to need a little bit more than curiosity. So my job today really is to explain to you what we've been doing, specifically in a number of areas of the Iris business and Iris Payroll Professional in particular, to really help you work smarter with payroll. So let me crack on with my agenda today. I've got a number of themes that I want to talk about that really lend in towards really those pillars that you saw Ilona talk about this morning. So firstly, about making you more productive in the way you work. We'll then talk about engagement and what we're doing to support that so that you can get closer to your customers, and they equally in terms with their own employees in their organizations. I wanted to give a little bit of an insight into what we're doing across all of our payroll products in improving those products and making sure you stay compliant. And finally, to bring it all together really is to explain actually how these things all come together in terms of convergence and evolution of what we're doing under the One Iris umbrella. So hopefully that sets out the four things that I'm going to talk about today. First thing I want to start off with is productivity, and I've got a confession to make. This part of the presentation is about processing multiple payrolls. So for those of you who offer a payroll service, now how many people in the audience does that apply to? Could I have a quick show of hands? Great, okay, well that's good. For those of you who didn't raise your hand, please don't go anywhere. This part of the presentation is about productivity improvement, about how you can make that processing of multiple payrolls more simple. But there's more for you in the later sections, if you didn't raise your hand, that is. And stick around, because it may be something that becomes useful for you further down the line. So before I get into the detail of what we're doing in automation, let me just give you a background to the three foundations, if you like, the cornerstones of our bureau solution. Now, with Iris, there are a number of products that as a payroll bureau you can use. We've focused in on Iris Payroll Professional as being really the sort of mid to upper level for companies processing probably payrolls of 100 or so and above. So this is really the product that we will take forward as the focus for that particular market. So here we have a product that runs on the desktop. It's for the payroll devotee, the payroll addict, if you like, somebody who's a payroll professional. What we have been working on, and I'm going to talk more about in a moment, is a robotic payroll process automation engine. My goodness, hopefully that isn't the product name. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute, but this is an intermediary layer. It's an automation layer that will help you support that desktop activity. And finally, the third part of this is an engagement platform. You've heard Tracy talk about this in terms of a project. It's called My ePay Window. I'll explain a little bit more about this, and there's some logic to that for everybody in the room a bit later on. But this is engagement, and it's for all the players in the payroll lifecycle. So for employees, for their employers, and if you're a payroll service provider, you all can log into My ePay Window. So it helps smooth the cycle of payroll processing through each and every period. So those are the three pieces that we see as integral in providing a payroll service. And I'm going to talk more about how they fit together as I go through the presentation today. But payroll's not an island, and hopefully you saw in JF's presentation this morning about Iris Elements. And on the 19th of September last year, Elements was launched. It's an ecosystem of apps that allow you to actually share information between the desktop and the cloud. And we see this as clearly the ultimate direction for Iris Payroll Professional, for My ePay Window. But over time, all of the Iris Payroll products will evolve to being able to operate within the Iris Elements platform. So this is our direction of travel. I'll talk more about it a little later on. But certainly our goal will be to allow products probably like My ePay Window and Virtual Payroll Assistant, I'll talk more about that in a moment, to coexist in the Elements platform. So we'll see more about that in a minute. So, is this it? As payrollers, when can we put our feet up and let the paybot do the work for us? Or will it be a paybot? Will it be something like a personal digital assistant? Now, a quick question. How many people have got one of those? Yeah, quite a few. How many one of those? Not so many. Looks like Alexa's winning at the moment. And how many people have used Siri? Yeah, we all have, haven't we? So these things are starting to happen now and move over into our personal lives, but they've not yet moved over into the business world. And actually, when you think about it, what does Alexa, what does Google, what does Siri know about payroll? Not a lot, do they? But it doesn't take too much of a leap in movement to think that these people do. So I'm not saying that it's going to happen today, but it's coming. And whether it's a paybot or it's a digital assistant, that future is happening. Now, I found this actually online when I was looking at this and thought, this is quite interesting. For those people who don't understand payroll, this is what automation might mean. Effectively, if you've got a payroll with 100 tasks in it, they all get neatly ticked off without you having to worry about it. Wouldn't that be lovely? Or if you've got 100 clients, can you imagine what this would be like as you go through the period? All of those payrolls get done, and look at the delight on these people's faces when it's all finished at the end of the day. But is it really that simple? How many of your payrolls could really be processed like that? Maybe 50 to 60%? Now, that's not a target that's worth sniffing at. Actually, you should go for that. But when you think about it, it's a little more complex. So let's take a look at what your typical payrolls are like. And they fall into a spectrum of complexity, and each of which will require a template of activities in there that are appropriate for that size of organization. So at one end of the scale, on the simple director-only sort of level, you've got a small number of tasks that arguably could happen without you being involved at all. Happy days. But then, what happens is that you get a whole range in this sort of mid-range to the complex range where there are breakpoints in processing where you need to have payroll knowledge, you need to have payroll skill, and you need to be able to then focus on those tasks and use your knowledge, the technology that you've got, your desktop software to be able to deliver that. The problem is that you make more money on the complex ones, well I hope you do, and you've got more of the simplistic ones. So what does that mean? Because each of these different types of payrolls will need this template, they'll need to have specific tasks in them, some of them automated, some of them manual, some of them will be approval steps. It's a pretty complex picture. And what does that mean for automation software? What it actually means is that when we talk about an automation module, it's actually two things that we're talking about, two things that work together seamlessly. It's automation and it's task management. And I like to think of it like a software double act, actually. Maybe to help you think about it, if you're having a great day, it's an Ant and Dec, or if you're my generation, a Morecambe and Wise. If things aren't going so well, it's a Jekyll and Hyde day. And if you're really nailing it and things are going well, it's a Penn and Teller, or maybe you're an artist, it's a Fred and Ginger. But I digress. The point is these two bits are fundamentally important. You can't have one without the other because payroll is not that simple. I think I'm talking to a converted audience on that. So let me introduce you to Virtual Payroll Assistant, and this is the automation module for users of Iris Payroll Professional. When we set about designing it, we had a number of key goals in mind. Let me talk you through those. I think the first thing is, and hopefully I've described that to you already, is that this isn't just something for director only and simple payrolls. It needs to work at some level across all of those different payrolls that you're processing. This is the game changer. This, and I'm going to steal from Marks and Spencer's in their advertising, is so much more than batch processing. I'm not going to knock batch processing. We've got batch processing. You'll hear more about it this afternoon. This is unattended processing. This is work while you sleep. So this is something that is quite different. And it relies on the fact that our steps in your processing that you set up know the successors, they know the predecessors, they know what's an approval. And when something happens, something can automatically happen without you having to touch a button or do anything. All sounds great. The problem is you need oversight. You need that visibility of what's happened, what do I need to worry about? I'm sure you're all familiar in that processing, which ones are working, where are we on that client, where is it? This oversight task dashboard is fundamental within the process. So they're the key aspects that we set out to solve with Virtual Payroll Assistant. I'm not going to apologize for this somewhat complex diagram, but let me explain what it is. Hopefully the schematic will give you some idea how each of these three players here, so what we've got up in the top right is the Virtual Payroll Assistant module. This is where you set things up. Down in the bottom right corner, you've got the desktop payroll software, which you as a payroll processing team will be using. And on the left-hand side, you have My ePay window, which is the cloud engagement collaboration. So what happens is you set it all up in Virtual Payroll Assistant, and it pushes jobs into the engine. Stuff happens, and it pushes that information either out to the desktop or out to, let's say, an employer client to approve something, to check something, whatever it might be. You do some work on the desktop because it's complex payroll processing. It's something you need to spend time with. Information comes back from an employer. More things happen on the desktop. It goes back into the engine, and the dashboards get updated. So hopefully that shows you these three things working seamlessly together to allow you to collaborate, to process, and to automate. And that's really the goal of Virtual Payroll Assistant, together with Payroll Professional and My ePay window. So how do you set it up? Well, we think there are 5 steps to payroll heaven. First one is, firstly, define a client group. So this would be types of clients who are all processed in a similar way. So paid monthly on a Thursday, something like that. Here you then pick from your clients, you add them into that group, and then attach to the group the correct processing template for that group. Now what we've done is out of the box is created these payroll templates. We went out to some of our clients and said, does that template look about right? What about that one? What about this one? And we've come up with literally just 4 templates, and you can take stuff out and you can add stuff in. And those templates are really the basis to allow you to process, we believe, all of your different payroll types. But you can adjust them, as I described. Each processing step has a start point, a duration, and you can modify that if you want. But like anything, it's much easier to start with a piece of paper with text on it rather than a blank piece. And finally, you say when you want this to start. Start from next pay period. And it will then continually schedule those jobs and allow you to manage them. So what does it look like? Difficult to show you here, but come and find us in the expo area if you want to see a little bit more. It's a web application, and it runs on your infrastructure. So what I mean by that is in your network, but it's a web site. And the reason for that is that you can make that accessible through your own organizations to you from home, because we think this is the kind of thing that you're going to want to sofa surf in the evening on an iPad going, right, has it all happened? What am I worrying about tomorrow or not? And what you can see in here across the top is a kind of traffic lights charts at the top. Red is what's failed. That's what you're really interested in. And then you've got warnings. You've got green. Don't need to worry about that. And then in the middle section, a number of charts and widgets, which are the manual tasks that have been allocated to members of your team. And you can see who's overloaded and what work they've got by day, et cetera, et cetera. So a very simple dashboard interface. In the desktop payroll product itself, you can see that right-hand panel, we've introduced a task list. And what that means is that when you come in the morning and you're not even in a payroll data file, you can see all the tasks that need to be done. The red ones, by the way, are overdue, and that list is scheduled in order of what you need to do first. As soon as you open a payroll, that list restricts down to just the tasks that need to be done in that payroll. And of course, don't forget, some of those things will be automatic. These are just the manual steps that you do. And you can then do that work in payroll and sign that job off, and then it will update the charts for you to see in one central place. So that hopefully that gives you a flavor for what a virtual payroll assistant is all about. Hopefully you're starting to think about this and think, well, actually, what does it mean? What's the impact of this kind of technology for us? I'll let you digest some of the questions on there. I like to think of virtual payroll assistant as almost like recruiting an extra member to your team. And I hope, like us, you're starting to think, actually, when can they start? Because I really want this person on board. This is really going to help. If we look at potential ROI, it's not too difficult to get a little bit carried away. So forgive me for a minute while I just delve a little into this area. That top one, instead of working 40 hours a week, you can now work 120 hours a week, right? That is actually, I put triple here, it's a 300% improvement in productivity. Bigger question is do I have that amount of work to do? Imagine you could do that. What does that mean to your profits? What did it mean if you could focus your team on more profitable work? And more importantly on that, what about your team? How do you retain them? How do you keep them? If they're working long hours, weekends, evenings all the time, that's not good. So quality of life, what's the value of that? So some really interesting questions. And what I'd leave you with is that we don't have the answers yet to this. Hopefully in a year from now, people will have been using the product. We'll come back with some stories and we'll have some better data on this. But imagine not improving your productivity by 3 times, but just notch it up a bit by 10 or 15%. Improve your profits by 10%. I'd ask you, how else are you going to do that in today's climate? So there's some pretty compelling things there. And I think I'm really looking forward to getting the product out with all of you and understanding actually what it can deliver for you. So when can you have it? Well, I'm pleased to say it hits the streets in May. That's our first release. It will do automation of simple director-style payrolls only at that stage, but will have the full task management piece in there. So really useful for you, even if you're not automating anything, just to see where you are in all of your monthly, weekly processing. And we're going to roll out in the first 3 or 4 months with early adopter clients and work very closely with them to see how it works, what needs to be tweaked and adjusted. We're not going to be finished, though, because we also have more automation that we want to do. There's more in RTI terms that we want to look at. Auto-enrollment is also something we want to tackle. And that's a pretty complex piece for us to add in. So we're not finished, but the product will then start to evolve on an agile basis as we move forward from May. So just to summarize on this automation side, what is it? I can't emphasize enough, automation is task management and it's automation. It's not click a button and forget it. When? It's pretty soon. May, we're working furiously to get the first release ready. And I guess the big question is what's it going to cost? Well, there's a pricing structure for it, which will be based on the number of payrolls that you process, a monthly charge. But we think the potential is so huge in terms of productivity improvement that this is a simple formula for you. So we're really excited about it. Hopefully, I'll finish with this quote, actually. Now, it's 5 years old, interestingly. I'll let you digest, and apologies, there's rather a lot of text on here. I'll summarize it for you. It was written back in 2015 by the head of ACCA at that time. And what it really says is you must automate the entry-level stuff. It's really the future for the financial services industry to actually remove that admin burden from you and actually allow you to spend time to focus on generating and building value with your clients. Because software like Virtual Payroll Assistant, which is an automation product, is never going to build or replace the value that you can with your clients. So use it for the benefit that it can bring. Don't be afraid of it, and become an organization who's fully embracing technology for payroll services. Okay, moving on to engagement, and this is for everybody. This is the engagement platform called My ePay Window. For those of you who don't know what My ePay Window is, it started out as a replacement for a product we had called ePayslips, which was one of the first ePayslip delivery platforms. It was launched in 2006, and we replaced it, or started to replace it, in 2018, and the product is out there, and it's a platform that is designed not just for employees to pick up a payslip, but it's designed for all the players in the payroll lifecycle to collaborate, to engage, and to make sure that payroll gets done on time, every month. So what that means is that it's for employees, it's for their employers, and what does it mean for employees? Well, firstly, you get a payslip, but not just a payslip, it's P60, it's P11D, at some point, hopefully not a surprise, a P45, but they get documents, auto-enrollment letters. We also allow contractors to log in as a pseudo-employee and pick up their CIS statements. So it allows them really to get all the information to do with their payroll and allows their employers to comply with their rules and obligations under the Employment Act. For employers, they can see all their employees, they can go in, they can brand the site, they can, more importantly, share information with their payroll department or their payroll bureau. They get analytics on how their employees are using it. They can set up other employer users. So if you've got a branch department structure as an organization, you can set up certain people who can see employees in one location, but not in another. So there's full permissions involved in the site for the employer. And then for the payroll bureau or the payroll service provider, equally they get to see all of their clients and all of their employees. They can provide a fully managed service with My ePay window. They get analytics on all of their clients, how much data, what they're using, et cetera, and again, security for their own staff to divide up their clients into groups and so forth. So it's a real collaboration platform. And of course, that data, it allows the client and the payroll bureau to exchange information per payroll cycle. So documents can be uploaded. You get a notification when somebody's uploaded some information for you. So this information is actually, in fact, I probably should look to Tracy to come and tell you about it. She did a great job this morning explaining how she's moved her clients over to this. So that's what My ePay window is. Why am I talking about it? Well, we're doing quite a lot on this, and we are working on a migration platform later on for other Iris products to migrate over to this at some point in the future. So it will become relevant, hopefully, for all of you at some point. It's a common user interface for everybody. It's smartphone, it's secure, it has two-factor authentication. I'm astonished by other payroll platforms that I'm aware of in the market that don't have two-factor authentication. We've got it. You will need it. If you haven't got clients asking you for it, you will. And it's there, so you can take advantage of it. But everybody gets a common look of data. There's graphical chart information in there, and we're looking to improve it and update it all the time. This year, there's some few things that we're working on. We're improving analytics with pay data. At the moment, we've got population statistics. We launched those in November of last year. We're now doing pay data, and that will be something that is for employees. You can trend your data. You can see your pay slip, how it's actually changed over the last 6 months, the last 1 month. For an employer, they can go in and see their net pay, their burden on AEOs, or whatever it might be, all available in easy-to-digest charts and graphics. Coincident with Virtual Payroll Assistant, we're introducing the ability for approvals in My ePay window. So these will be coming out very soon in May. That will allow them to integrate automatically with the VPA automation process. And finally, we're looking at a new UI which is a better improved interface for My ePay window that allows us to actually provide some more graphics and more application-like feel. So some exciting things coming along. Let's move on to our themes across the payroll stream. We've got a number of things that we're working on. Clearly, we're a compliance organisation. That's what we do. We have to keep that happening. We're all waiting to see what happens in the budget on the 11th of March. Hopefully, no changes. But that remains a key theme for us. But we want to improve those desktop products. As JF said, we're not going to get rid of the desktop, but we need to continually improve it. And there's a number of projects across all of our payroll streams that are happening as we move into this year. I'll talk more about those in a minute. And as you've seen already, there's a lot going on in this evolution towards the web with My ePay window and VPA. You can see what's happening in those areas. So let's try and bring some of this together, really, in terms of those projects and ultimately the direction we're moving in. Firstly, starting this year, we're going to improve. The first launch of Virtual Payroll Assistant will be out, but we're going to look at the data provisioning service and how we improve that functionality for the desktop product and for VPA. We want to look at automation this year as well and introduce the concept of multiple offices and teams into Virtual Payroll Assistant. Gap we're going to plug in IPP is that of occupational absence. We don't have it in the product at the moment, and that's quite a big project, but we want to add that in. Finally, we're going to be, and I talked about that with My ePay window, we're looking at My ePay window becoming a migration option for users of open payslips. So this is where other Iris products will be using the My ePay window platform. And finally, across a number of the desktop payroll products, Iris Payroll Professional, Iris Payroll Business, and Iris Bureau Payroll, we'll be improving the HR integration with an API level integration with Cascade Go or RSHR. So some exciting things happening there, and we're certainly not going to be sitting on our laurels. The big thing in the background is that we've started already on envisioning our next generation payroll product in Elements. And this will start with components being built in the Element platform. For example, I talk about the data provisioning service. We're looking to get the data provisioning services built in Elements, and Virtual Payroll Assistant will leverage it there. And then gradually, that functionality will be absorbed by the desktop payroll products over time. So some really exciting things. So I'm at time. My last slide, you'll be pleased to know. Just to summarize, I hope some exciting things that you've seen today. Automation, Virtual Payroll Assistant is real. It's a game changer, we believe, in the way that organizations process payroll, and it starts to happen from May. In terms of engagement, My Pay window is there already. We've got lots of exciting things coming on to improve that engagement. And on our desktop products, we're going to make them better so you can deal with more payrolls, more different types of payrolls than you can currently. I think these things in isolation are pretty compelling, but when you put them together, I think they really do provide some of those keys to help you unlock smarter working. So thank you very much for your time and for listening. If you've got any questions, come and find me in the expo area or come and see us in the team. So thank you very much.